So, is Canada's strategy to diversify working? What challenges remain? Joining me now is the Minister of International Trade, Diversification, Jim Carr. Hi, Minister Carr.
Hi, Vash.
Great to see you again.
And you too.
Under a different portfolio, but thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. I want to start off, of course, I will ask about CPTPP and CETA, but we just had Katie there explaining and presenting the idea that the tone has shifted and that the word choice that Minister Freeland, the words that she used coming out of the meeting did not include progress, did not include constructive. How should we interpret that?
Well, I heard constructive. You can look at tone, you can look at words, you can look at all kinds of things. The important value is that they're continuing to negotiate and in good faith, complex issues. And Canada is determined to look for the best deal for our country. And that's what we have said from the beginning, and that hasn't changed. They're working all the way through the night, literally. And that shows that all countries involved understand how important the deal is, and it's in the interest of all three nations, and Canada is there in good faith.
Minister Freeland is set to be in Montreal tomorrow. She hasn't said when she's coming back to the talks. She's set to be in New York City all next week for the UN. Does that mean that her end of the negotiations is over for now, even though that takes us into that end-of-month deadline?
The negotiators don't stop.
But the ministers do have to be there to get a deal.
At the end of the day, the ministers will be there, but meanwhile, when the ministers are doing other things, the officials are beavering away through the complexities of the agreement. So what I take from this is that they continue to work through them. Sometimes it's paragraph by paragraph, and that there are teams of very skilled negotiators who are negotiating on behalf of Canada and Canada's interests. And that's the way it was, that's the way it continues to be.
Behind the scenes, we're being told, not on the record, but on background, that the Canadian government is okay with missing that October 1st deadline. I want to ask you on the record, is the Canadian government okay with missing that deadline?
We're focused on getting the best deal for Canada, and we've also are determined not to negotiate in public. We'll continue to negotiate, and in good faith, with Canada's interests at the front of what we believe to be the objective that all Canadians want. We think that most Canadians agree that this is a very important trading relationship, but they also want the government of Canada to be firm in presenting and promoting our values. That's what we've done. That's what we continue to do. The deadlines seem to come and go. We'll see what happens to the next one.
Okay, I want to move on to CPTPP, the
Good.
bill that's
Let's do that.
currently being debated. When the Harper government was negotiating the original TPP, it agreed to a rather large, $4.3 billion at the time, compensation package for farmers. Will there be, I mean, dairy farmers have reached out to me in the past weeks and said that compensation package has not materialized in the agreement you agreed to. Will it?
We continue to have these important conversations. We know how important supply management is for the industries across the country. We continue to believe it's important, and we defend it. We're defending it in all of our trade discussions. But the important point to make is that all of our producers are now going to have access to 1 billion more consumers around the world, east and west, and that this is an opportunity to generate jobs and create wealth. We talk an awful lot about distributing our wealth as a nation. We also have to talk about creating that wealth, and the way you create that wealth is through trade agreements and growth that produces these good jobs. It's not just for the sake of signing an agreement. What does it mean? It means that our small and medium-sized businesses have a bridge over which these goods and services can flow. And those bridges are as strong as they've ever been. We're working very hard in the Pacific region. We're working hard in the Mercosur countries of South America, the Pacific Alliance. The European deal is done. We celebrate the one-year anniversary tomorrow, and we understand that Asia is very important to Canada and for all of our sectors, including agriculture.
I want to ask you about CETA, but first I do have to follow up on what you just said, because there are obviously, given what's going on with NAFTA and the speculation around concessions, I know you said it opens up a new market for all producers here, but it also, according to farmers affected, shaves off some of their market, and they feel like, you know, death by 1,000 cuts. Will there be compensation with CPTPP?
We have a continuing conversation with producers. We know how important, it's not determined yet. We know how important that system is for producers in Canada. And we also know how important it is to open up these new markets. This is significant. This is trillions of dollars of possible investment into Canada. And it's two-way. It's not only how we open up these markets to sell our goods and our services, it's also to invite investment into Canada. And we think that on both fronts, we're much further ahead today than we were even 2 days ago, and certainly where we were a year ago.
I'm glad you brought that up because Janice McGregor, one of my colleagues here at CBC, did some number crunching using StatsCan data. And on our free trade agreement with CETA, found that that our exports to the EU in the 10 months following CETA grew by only about 1%, while in the corresponding period, our imports grew by 12%. What is the problem?
I have a problem with the stats. The chief statistician and Stats Canada say it's 3.3% year over year and $1.1 billion. And that's just the beginning.
But that's still less than the difference. I'm asking about the difference. Okay, so take your numbers, it's 3%. Yeah, it's still a lot less than we are importing. But
look at it the other way. Look at more choice for Canadian consumers. Look at the platform that's been built for Canadian producers. This is very early days. We're in a much better position than we were a year ago, and next year will be better than this year has been.
So you don't think there's any issue with, for example, and what her reporting showed, the number of businesses taking advantage of what's new? I mean, is your government doing a good enough job making businesses aware of what's available to them and urging them to capitalize on the agreements that have been set up? Could you be doing a better job?
Yes, and we're absolutely committed to doing a better job. And that's why this conversation with small and medium-sized businesses is ongoing. We have a vast system worldwide of trade commissioners who are there to help SMEs. It's been very easy to do most of our business with one country. The geography of it, the ease with which this trade has flowed, is now part of an understanding that we have to expand these markets to take full advantage of what these new markets have for our producers.
Do trade commissioners have the tools, though, to sell that message? Do they need new tools?
They have tools. We're giving them more tools. I've already, believe it or not, been around the world since I last saw you, around the world in 12 days. And I was in the Asia Pacific. I had negotiations with the ASEAN nations. I was in Thailand. I was in Israel, where we have modernized our free trade agreement with the Israelis. And all of this means that we are creating the possibility of businesses to take advantage of these new rules, and a rules-based system is the one that we are promoting at a time when the world is full of protectionism. We're fighting against that protectionism. Why are we doing that? Because these opportunities mean jobs for Canadians and creation of new wealth.
Do you understand, though, the concerns around, I get the idea of expanding trade and diversifying it, but if it's not being capitalized on, do you feel pressure to make sure that it is?
Yes. It's not only pressure, it's action, and we're taking that action, and we're doing it in a very deliberate way. Also, the Prime Minister has appointed a minister in charge of the promotion of export industry, Minister Eng. We're working very closely together. As a matter of fact, she was in China this week.
So should we expect that 3% number to grow a lot by next year?
Yes, we should expect it to grow a lot, and we should also expect the government to be more aggressive in facilitating the support that small businesses need.
Okay, I have to leave it there, but thank you for coming in,
It's
Mr.
my pleasure.
Carr. Great
Thank
to
you.
see you again.
And you.